Well, we're joined now from Washington by Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson, who was Colin Powell's chief of staff in the run-up to the war. And this man, Agent Curveball, was clearly a fantasist. Why did you believe him?
We were never given the name Curveball nor any of the details that you've now so vividly displayed for your listening public and watching public. We were told there were 4 sources, each independently corroborated, which was one of the requirements that Secretary Powell put on the presentation before we ever started preparation of it. And we were told that one of those sources was an Iraqi engineer who, as your show displayed, had been present in a mobile biological facility when an accident had occurred that had released toxic agent and had killed people. That was basically the information we were given, along with some very exquisitely drawn blueprints that supposedly came from this engineer that depicted the mobile biological labs that we would later show in graphic form at the United Nations Security Council.
But the engineer, the supposed engineer who was present at the time of this accident, wasn't even in Iraq at the time the accident occurred. Now that surely was a relatively easy thing to check, wasn't it?
No, we were dependent on the Director of Central Intelligence, who was speaking for all 16 of the U.S. intelligence entities, and, as a matter of fact, was speaking for Jordan, Israel, France, England, Germany, and a host of other countries who shared in this view that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction in all categories, chemical, biological, and nuclear.
But we
were listening to the DCI, we were listening to the expertise of the intelligence agency with regard to these mobile biological labs, just as we were for nuclear programs, biological, other elements of the biological program, and so forth.
But the CIA had been told by MI6 that they believed that this man's evidence was deeply unreliable, and indeed they thought it was absolutely consonant with the behavior of a man who was a fabricator.
Again, you're saying MI6 or whomever told the CIA. Tyler Drumheller, the head of the European division in the CIA in Europe, just told you on your tape that he told at least some people at the CIA of his misgivings. Indeed, even marked out the portions in the script that he was sent to check. We, Secretary Powell and I and our team, were never told any of that information. That information was kept at the DCI level and the deputy DCI level, John McLaughlin, if it ever existed at all. I have only Tyler's words and other people's words that these doubts ever were registered. I don't doubt them. I don't see any motivation that they would have to say this, so I don't doubt them. But what I'm saying is, the Secretary and I never got that doubt.
Colonel Wilkerson, the evidence that Colin Powell gave at the United Nations was watched around the world, and it persuaded many people that there was at the very least something deeply troubling going on in Iraq. It now turns out it was not only nonsense, much of it, but it was also known to be nonsense by various people at very high levels in your government. Wasn't it incumbent upon you to check?
Let me ask you a question. How does the Secretary of State check the Director of Central Intelligence for information that the Director of Central Intelligence is simply not going to render to the Secretary of State? How does anyone, for that matter, check the DCI? How does anyone pick up the phone and call the BND? How does anyone pick up the phone and call any intelligence entity in the world and get a straightforward answer?
Well, I put it to you,
This is not
Colonel.
something that you do simply.
I understand what you're saying, but I put it to you, Colonel Wilkerson, that the decision to go to war had already been made, and that therefore those concerned at the very highest level wished to believe the evidence they were given, or alleged evidence they were given, was true.
I'm not going to dispute that. You have information I don't have when you say you know that the administration had decided to go to war. I don't know that. I don't know where anywhere in the archives of official information you can find that our president ever made a decision to go to war. But I will tell you this. There was far more serious error in that presentation than the mobile biological labs. There was an assertion that there was an active nuclear program based on aluminum tubes. There was an assertion that there were active contacts between Al-Qaeda and the Mukhabarat in Baghdad, given from Sheikh al-Liby's testimony rendered under torture. Those were far more damning than a mobile biological lab, so if you want me to condemn the presentation, I'll sit here and do it. It was a horrible hoax on the American people, on the international community, and on the UN Security Council. No question about it. And the biological labs are just a component of that hoax. But what I'm telling you is that the intelligence community of the United States And all those supporting it, which were quite a few, went along with the information that we delivered in that presentation. That, sir, concerns me a whole lot more than the single incident of the mobile labs.
Colonel Wilkerson, thank you for taking the time to join us. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.